would you agree the thylakoid membrane is full of hydrogen? Yes? And that hydrogen wants to go from a high concentration area to a low concentration area.
Yep.
Just like if water goes from a high area to a low area, it can spin a water wheel and make things happen. Do we agree? If the hydrogen goes from a high concentration side of a membrane to a low concentration side of the membrane, it can cause the, oh sorry, that's not dramatic enough. It can cause the ATP synthase to stop. Would you agree the movement of hydrogen ions powers the ATP synthase, right? Now this is an enzyme. You know that because ACE means enzyme, okay? ATP synthase is an enzyme that makes ATP. How does it make ATP? Hydrogen spins it around and it makes ATP. Good? When it spins, it grabs this, it grabs that, it smashes them together. You've seen a water wheel, and you know that when the water wheel turns on one end, it does work on the other end.
Yes.
They're not just pretty. Okay, same thing. When the ATP synthase is spun, not by water, but by hydrogen, when it's spun, it does work. Okay? The work it does is hooking adenosine diphosphate with two phosphates to another phosphate. If you take the 2-phosphate, ADP, and you add a phosphate, you've made ATP, the high energy 3-phosphate molecule. So, from the top, make sure you got it, light comes in, and when light comes in, it excites electrons, and we use those excited electrons as energy to pump hydrogen. Then we have lots of hydrogen on this side, not much there. So then the hydrogen flows through the ATP synthase and powers the spinning of the round, and powers the ADP to smash into the phosphate to make an ATP. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
So making oxygen is a byproduct, or making O2, oxygen, breathable oxygen, is a byproduct of the plant splitting water. The plant is splitting water from it splits two H2Os, and that gives you two oxygens that you get an O2, and we can breathe that, and that's pretty cool. But that gives it 4 hydrogens that it has inside the thylakoid. Well, I don't mind that they say, hey, synthesis is happening here. I mind that they don't give you the real name of what's happening. But we're going to use the ATP we made in the light reactions, or it's going to power going around the Calvin cycle, hooking the carbons together to make a G3P. You take a 3-carbon G3P, a 3-carbon G3P, hook them together to get a glucose. Good? All right. We call that process, because it's picking up carbon dioxide, carbon fixation. It's a big deal. You might hear people who are into green energy talking about this in the news. Well, carbon fixation, because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, CO2 levels are rising, we have to get them down. Maybe if we plant more trees, if we plant more plants, they'll take more carbon out of the air. So carbon fixation is the conversion of inorganic gaseous carbon in the atmosphere, up in the air, into an organic sugar molecule. Those sugars are used by the plants for themselves and everything that eats the plants. Second part of photosynthesis, Calvin cycle makes sugars. This happens in the stroma. I didn't put that in red, but you need to know it. Stroma is where this happens, not the thylakoids. And it takes carbon dioxide out of there. We call that carbon fixation. Glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is G3P. This depends on an enzyme that is named rubisco. This is important. Rubisco picks up the carbon dioxide. This will become important later. I want you to know it for that reason, because there are ways that becomes difficult to do that we're going to discuss. Rubisco picks up the carbon dioxide, and what we're doing, we are growing chains. Each time you go around the cycle, you pick up 1 carbon dioxide. You go around it 3 times to make a 3-carbon. You go around it how many times to make a glucose? 6!
Yes.
You got a 3-carbon G3P. You got a 3-carbon G3P. You stick them together to make a 6-carbon glucose. If you only pick up 1 carbon each time you go around the cycle, you go around 3 times to make a G3P. You go around 6 times to make a glucose. The Calvin cycle is making sugars. It needs energy. Where does it get the ATP from? The question is, this requires energy. Where do we get the energy from? Yes! Thank you, Zach! Thank you, Zach. The light reactions make the ATP that powers the Calvin cycle. Go around 1 time, you get 1 carbon. You need to go around 3 times to make a G3P. How many times did you have to go around to make a glucose? 6. G3P is the building block of glucose. Glucose is used to make cellulose or starch or glycogen, right? It's the sugar all the sugars are built out of. So plants store starch overnight. The reason why is that the ATP they make from the light reactions, I may have said this before, but the light reactions make ATP. You'd be like, oh, we got ATP, we're done. But the problem is then the plant would die during the night. There's no light. You need a way to survive through the night. So what's the plant do? It makes ATP during the day and uses it to make sugars, and then at night it can break those sugars down in the mitochondria to get ATP. So during the day it makes all the ATP it's using during the day and all the ATP stored as sugar that it's going to use through the night to survive. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So photosynthesis is a two-stage process. You got to know the name's light reaction. You've got to know that what the light reaction does is make energy, ATP and NADPH. You've got to know that what the light reactions do is split water apart and give us the oxygen we breathe. You need to know that the reason why they split the water apart is to put hydrogens in the thylakoids. Good? You need to know that the thylakoids are full of hydrogen and that that hydrogen is used to power the spinning chair, which is what, Danny? ATP synthase. Yeah. ATP synthase. The name tells you what it does. It synthesizes ATP. Good? Good. Enzyme synthesizes ATP. All right. So that's the light reactions. For the Calvin cycle, you have to know that what the Calvin cycle does is turn carbon dioxide into sugars. You have to know that the first sugar that's made is G3P, not glucose. You have to know that the way this process is powered is with the chemical energy, the ATP, the NADPH, but especially the ATP, made in the light reactions. That's okay. I've been bitten. Ow, he has teeth. Ow, ow, ow.